What's going on, guys? We are in week 3 of People of Purpose. Week 1, we talked about how important it is to surrender to God and His will for our life. In week 2, last week, we talked about the importance of preparing and not just going out and winging it, but preparing with God daily and for a lifetime. So go watch those videos if you haven't yet. But today we're going to be looking at how people of purpose are called to make a wave. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I loved to in a pool, in a neighborhood pool or whatever, I loved to make a tidal wave in the deep end, right? So how this works is you would get the chubby kid, yours truly, to jump in the deep end, cannonball, jackknife, lazy Susan. I don't know what that one is, but I've heard it before in the pool. Do that, make a giant wave, and everyone else like throws their hands and feet above and under the water, and you just got this like giant wave pool going. Water's like crashing over the side. Kids in the shallow, and you know how when you're a kid in the shallow and you walk in the pool like this just to get your mouth out of the water so you can breathe. Well, they're all drowning in there. It's a terrifying but awesome time at the same time. Tidal pools was one of my favorite things to do it in the pool as a kid, probably because I was a star of the show because I could make a giant splash. But we are called as Christians to make a wave in this world that points back to the awesomeness of Jesus, to make an impact that points back to God and bring Him more glory. If for our story today, we're going to look at Peter and Jesus walking on the water together. So right before this happens, this is in Matthew 14. Jesus and the disciples just got done feeding 5,000 people with very little food. Go back and read it. It's in 14 as well. But they need some space. They need some time to recoup. And so Jesus sends the disciples over to the other side of the lake while He goes up to the mountainside to get some peace and quiet and pray and recover with His Heavenly Father. And while He's doing this, a storm comes up, and the disciples are kind of caught out in the lake on it. The waves are so big they can't get back to the shore. And in John, it says they're rowing away. And so Jesus decides, as Jesus does in His awesomeness, is He's like, okay, look, I need to get out to Him. So I'm just going to walk on the water. So He walks from the shore out to the boat on the water. The disciples see Him. They're freaking out. They're thinking it's a ghost. Jesus says, hey, look, it's not a ghost. It's me. Calm down. And Peter, bold Peter, first one to say something. He says, okay, Lord, if it's you, prove it. Call me out there to you. And so Jesus goes, okay, come on out here. And so, have you ever asked somebody to prove something and then they prove it? Then you have to okay, I was wrong. You were right. That's exactly what happens here. So Peter is like, okay, well, I guess I'll get out of the boat. So he gets out of the boat, and Peter actually starts walking on the water. And he's walking on the water towards Jesus. And if you've heard the story before, Peter looks around and sees the waves and begins to fear. And so that's when he starts to sink. And Jesus immediately rescues him, pulls him back in the boat, and then they go on back to the shore together. And a lot of times Peter can get a bad rap here because his faith faltered, right? But we can learn from Peter, and what's crazy and what we can grab is just from what Peter did here. And he does a lot of stuff. Hey, the other guys stayed in the boat. Peter had enough faith to step out, right? And all Jesus had to say was, come on. And Peter's like, okay, that makes sense. We'll walk on water together, right? So we can learn a lot from Peter here. But Peter asked God for something crazy that will bring Jesus crazy glory, right? So not only can this guy, Jesus, walk on water, but how crazy would it be if you could make me walk on water too? So that's what Peter prays for, something so big that would bring God greater glory. And so God answers. Jesus says, come on. And so then Peter has a choice to make right here. Do I move or do I stay still, right? And bold Peter moves, right? And so Peter, what's cool about this though is Peter doesn't sink Peter doesn't sink when he steps out in the beginning, right? He steps out, he's actually walking on water. He starts to sink when he looks around at his surroundings, right? He starts to sink when he takes his eyes off Jesus right in front of him, right? If God is calling you to do something, and He is, because we're all called to make huge waves in this world, we're all called to be the light, right? We're all called to point back to Him. We have to fix our eyes on Him and not the waves, right? Not other people's opinions around us, not on the people around us who doubt us, not our own history, and not even our own strength, right? If we're called to make a wave in this world, the one person's opinion and the one person we have to be focused on is Christ Himself. So a lot of people will bag Peter here for sinking, but at least he had enough faith to step out of the boat while the other 11 stayed in there, right? And he actually succeeded for a bit. Peter is one of the 2 people of all time to walk on water, right? Hey, look, Peter goes on to do amazing things for God and his kingdom. In Peter's first sermon ever in Acts 2, we see 3,000 people accept Jesus and are baptized and step into that full life with him. And I got to believe this moment was huge so Peter could see and witness what Jesus is able to do through him and in him. Look, Peter spoke up and asked God for something so crazy and so big that it would not work unless God shows up. And I believe we should all at some point in our life do something so big that it's guaranteed to fail unless God shows up, a true moment of faith. So what are we supposed to do, though, daily with this? One, we're just supposed to seek him and give him glory in everything that we do. And when we feel and when we believe and we think we're supposed to move somewhere or do something, we're called to step and then step and then step and then step, to keep stepping in faith. That's why I call it walking with Jesus, because it's never something that we end doing. Right? The finish line is in heaven. And God is going to call us to do some easy things, but he's also going to call us to do some things that's going to make us use and exercise our faith in him, because he wants you to see what happens when you put your faith in him and he shows up. Okay, guys, people of purpose are called to make waves in this world. I can't wait to see you again in person, but I'll see you on Zoom at 5 p.m. on Sunday, and right here, back here again in our office, 7 p.m. on Wednesday for our next, what is it called? 7 at 7 videos. Have an awesome week.